Even as these scenes have become somewhat familiar when it comes to Khalistanis on the rampage in countries like the United Kingdom and Canada, what happened in the last few hours when it comes to Foreign Minister Jaishankar and the Indian Tiranga is truly shocking. India has slammed the United Kingdom for the security breach. The images are on your screen. Pro Khalistani protesters, in fact, we should call them Khalistani separatists, attempted to attack Foreign Minister Jaishankar as he finished a talk at the Chatham House in London. They attempted to encircle the car in which he was about to depart. They shouted separatist slogans, and one of them then proceeded to tear the Indian flag, the Indian tricolour. India has slammed what happened, calling it a security breach. This is not the first time that these images have unfolded on the streets of London. We all remember the attack that took place on the Indian mission in London, and also how the Indian envoy to the United Kingdom, Vikram Doraiswami, was stopped by Khalistanis from entering a gurudwara in Scotland. But beyond the condemnations, beyond the hand wringing, beyond the anger that all Indians must feel today, irrespective of what your political affiliations are, this is India's foreign minister being encircled by Khalistani separatists who are against our country's national interests. The point is that does diplomacy and our approach to this have to shift gear? Are mere condemnations every time this happens enough? And in terms of real options, as global politics is being upended in the age of Trump, what are India's real options? And what is the connection between not just United Kingdom and Canada when it comes to these Khalistani groups, but also Pakistan? This question on a day when Jaishankar was quizzed about POK, and he said at Chatham House to a Pakistani journalist, India is waiting for the stolen bits to be returned. That triggered a debate of its own in the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. Welcoming to the program three very distinguished guests known for their outspoken views on this issue. Sushant Sareen is with us. Welcome, Sushant. Sushant, of course, is one of our best known strategic affairs analysts. Welcome to the program. Also joining me is Kushal Mehra. Kushal is one of the most outspoken voices on the issue of the thriving Khalistani groups in Canada. Is the United Kingdom going the Canada way? And is India making the mistake of being too soft on it, as Kushal would argue we have done with Canada? And also joining me is veteran diplomat Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Welcome to the program, all three of you. Let me start with you, Ambassador Dayal. The condemnation has come from India. It isn't the first time it's come. We remember a time when the security outside the UK envoy to India's residence was actually downgraded to make a strong statement against our mission coming under attack in London. But the foreign minister getting encircled as he steps into a car outside the very venerable Chatham House, the protesters being able to cross the road, surround the car, the Indian flag, being torn in the foreign minister's presence, the separatist slogans that are that are raised as the foreign minister is trying to make his way out of this crowd. I mean, it's enraging, but should they, India has condemned it. Now what? It's going to happen again because it's happened before. It's happened today. It'll happen again because these groups are able to get away with this in London in the name of free speech.
Well, Barkha, thanks for having me on your show. I've seen this footage again and again. And what strikes me as being very remarkable is the fact that the British police somehow allowed it to happen. They were not proactive enough. They could have prevented this man from crossing the street and tearing the Indian flag in front of the car of the Indian External Affairs Minister. But they seemed to stand idly and allow him to run, and he was able to do what he wanted. So I feel that there was a degree of a lack of inaction on the part of the British policemen. But that reflects the sort of attitude which the British government has been adopting in this regard all along. As you rightly pointed out, these things have been happening from time to time. But what we are witnessing is that no action is taken against the perpetrators of these acts. The British know very well who are the people behind it. They know very well who are the people who actually carry out these acts. But do they take any meaningful action against them? I am afraid not. So it's all allowed to go on in the name of freedom of speech, as our External Affairs Ministry has regretted. And indeed, it is very condemnable. Now, suppose the reverse were to happen. Suppose the
Yeah.
British Foreign Secretary was here and a group of demonstrators wanted to go and protest right in front of his car. Would this have been allowed to happen? I'm afraid that our security people would have prevented it from happening. And regrettably, the British security agencies did not do enough to keep these protesters away. Let me mention that when I was Consul General in New York, there was a the danger of protests taking place right in front of our consulate, which was on one side of Fifth Avenue. But the New York police always kept the so-called Khalistani protesters away. They kept them on the other side of Fifth Avenue. They were not allowed to come anywhere near the consulate. In this particular instance, they came right in front of the car of the Indian External Affairs Minister and created a scene which really will spoil the tone and tenor of the relationship, at least for some time. So I expect that the government of India should take this matter up very forcefully and ensure that the British authorities show that they mean action, that they will be taking action. They know who was this demonstrator. They should arrest him and lock him up. So what we need is action. And I'm afraid that till now, I have not seen meaningful action coming from the British side.
And I agree with every word you've said, but Sushant, the question then is, as we look towards the United Kingdom for meaningful action, the man who stood in front of Jaishankar's car to be taken into custody, we've been in this moment before. There is great deja vu when it comes to the United Kingdom, when it comes to Canada. In these moments, as I said, the Indian mission there's been an attempted storming of the Indian mission and the attempt to put Khalistani flags there, replace the Indian tricolor. The Indian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Vikram Doraiswami, was stopped from entering a gurudwara. Please note the irony. We have downgraded, as I mentioned in the past, the security of the UK envoy to India. What are India's options, and do you think that this condemnation, this cyclical condemnation, is no longer enough? And if it's no longer enough, what else can be done?
So, Barkha, look, what happened was a deliberate move and it was permitted by the British authorities. And I say this with all the gravitas I can summon and without indulging in any conspiracy theory. Because for a very simple reason, first time it happens, it's chance. Second time, it's a coincidence. Third time, and multiple times, it's enemy action. And very clearly, this the British have been doing ever since. But look, if I was a Britisher and I am a past master in dishing out these kind of slights, these kind of insults on a former colony like India, and I still have that superciliousness which the Brits have about them, uh, I'm entitled to do it because, after all, what are the consequences coming from India? Uh, have we called off our trade talks? Have we said that, okay, fine, enough is enough? This is a very clear security breach. And as the ambassador very correctly says, there was this very chummy kind of an attitude of the cops out there. Maybe it's because their boss is a Pakistani. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe because the whole state is, under the Labour government is very, very. They've always been pro-Pakistan. They've always supported Pakistan in all the wars which have been fought between India and Pakistan. And just this was not the only thing which happened. Just yesterday, deliberately, there was a meeting apparently in the House of Commons or whatever their goddamn parliament is called, where they were discussing Kashmir and India and stuff like that. Very deliberate slight given to the Indian foreign minister, just as, and this is like used as a pressure point against us. So the question then I have to ask my government is, what are you going to do about it? Are you just simply going to continue through these diplomatic motions that we have condemned something and we don't want this, we take a very dim view of what is happening, and there are no consequences visited upon the Brits? Uh, and because until you do that, forget the Brits. You don't do it with the Canadians. You don't do it with anybody. And if you're not going to do this, and if you're not going to tell these characters, these third-rate, third-world countries from Europe, that look, there are certain red lines that you do not cross when it comes to India. Criticism, all of that is all very well. And for the Brits, especially under this fascist Labour government, which puts people in prison simply because of a tweet or simply because of raising an issue which these guys find politically inconvenient, for them to tell us that there is freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of demonstration, that's bullshit, right? So I am afraid we have called this upon ourselves because there's really no pushback. There are no consequences visited upon these guys. And then, we can keep talking about it in your show and multiple other shows, but it means nothing to nobody because the Brits are not going to change their very cunning and slimy approach to international diplomacy, which they've been past masters. This is the only relevance left. Their only relevance in the world today, in the world of international diplomacy, is their sliminess. What else do they bring to the table? They're a bankrupt country. They have nothing that they sell anybody. Nobody wants to, even Europe has shunned them. So what do the Brits bring to the table anyways? Apart from
Can
nostalgia.
I can I ask you? You say that you've said with responsibility that you believe that this was deliberate. It was enabled almost, not just mishandled, but enabled by the British police. And then you say, is this because their boss is of Pakistani origin? I assume you're talking about the mayor of London in this context, Sadiq Khan. When you say it is deliberate and not just mishandled by the police, what do you mean, Sushant?
The Brits have been, don't the Brits know what these guys are up to? Don't they know what their linkages are? And the ambassador can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is one of the principles of diplomacy that, for example, if India and Pakistan are there in the United Kingdom, we do not carry out our fight with each other using British citizens. Aren't the Pakistanis hobnobbing with the Khalistanis on a daily basis? Don't their officials meet the ISI guys and their regular diplomats meet these Khalistanis, encourage them, have developed liaison with them inside Pakistan? Is the British intelligence so incompetent that they don't know what the hell is happening? Or if it is happening, then are they allowing it deliberately? This is used. Listen, Barkha, we are not children anymore. This is used as a kind of a lever against India. That if you continue, we have a lot of leverages against you, which we can bring to bear whenever. And if nothing else, we can insult you whenever we want to insult you. And I'm afraid, as an Indian, I'm not going to accept it. But Barkha, let me just say one more thing, and I'm sure this what I'm going to say is going to rile a lot of people. As long as people in the government continue to use their offices to seek visas for officials, their daughters, their son-in-laws, their son-in-laws' children, I'm afraid this visa thing is the one issue on which we've lost multiple diplomatic battles. Again, I'm sure Ambassador will probably bear me out on this, because I have seen this, that even when the Ministry of External Affairs has wanted to crack down very hard on some of these countries for the kind of stuff they've been doing with us, ultimately there will be some chief secretary, some minister, some minister's PA who will come and say कि मेरी बेटी ने जाना था लंदन, तो जरा उसका जरा वीजा करवा दो, उसकी एडमिशन होनी है वहां पर. This kind of nonsense which has been going on. And until and unless there is a solid diktat issued, you want to apply for a visa, apply for a visa. The government of India is not going to recommend anybody's visa, not even an official's visa. If they don't want to give it, but this nonsense has been done to death, and I really hope this stops.
Okay, Sushant made this point about Pakistanis hobnobbing with the Khalistanis. I think there is study after study, even if you don't apply common sense, that empirically shows the connection between Pakistani ISI-backed groups and Khalistani groups in both the United Kingdom, the United States, and in Canada. This is a statement of fact, not a statement of interpretation. Before I come to Kushal, what is ironic, I don't know if that's the correct word, what is ironic is that Jaishankar, inside that same building, outside of which this happens, is asked a question about POK by a Pakistani journalist. Here's what happens next. I'm only bringing this in because there is a clear linkage between Pakistan's deep state and Khalistani groups. But let's see what Jaishankar says on Jammu and Kashmir and POK.
There are 1 million soldiers stationed in Kashmir to control 7 million Kashmiris. So what are you going to do about the Kashmir problem?
Okay,
You haven't spoken about
Can we
it.
just capture
Thank
the
you.
question there? Thank you. And there was a similar one from Nick.
Oh, okay. Well, look, on Kashmir, actually we have done, I think, a good job solving most of it. I think removing Article 370 was step number one. Then restoring growth and economic activity and social justice in Kashmir was step number 2. Holding elections, which were done with a very high turnout, was step number 3. I think the part we are waiting for is the return of the stolen part of Kashmir, which is on the under illegal Pakistani occupation. When that's done, I assure you, Kashmir solved.
When that's done, I assure you, Kashmir, all of these concerns that you've raised will be over. Kushal, smartly, eloquently, firmly handled by the foreign minister, then he steps out of the same building. And the Khalistanis, who are meant to be across the street and cordoned off there, are actually able to cross the street, surround his car. One of them attempts to lunge for Jaishankar, who's of course safely inside the car by that time. The flag is torn, the slogans are raised. We've been in this moment before. Mr. Jaishankar is, as I said, very eloquent inside on the issue of POK and JNK and 370. And then he comes out and this happens. And we can't ignore the Pakistan connection. I totally agree with Sushant. But do you agree with him that the cyclical sort of season of condemnations isn't doing anything either?
Yeah, 3 points. There's a leaked Home Office report of the United Kingdom. I think Indian media has also covered it, where one of the 9 threats is Khalistani extremism. This was reported quite, extensively in our media circles too. It was reported in British media too. Point number 2, I don't know how many of you saw Mocha Bazargan's coverage, where it was very interesting to see that the Khalistanis who were interviewed by Mocha, one of them says, Justin Trudeau is our Jathedar. In the district of Khalistan, we will put up a statue of Justin Trudeau. I'm sorry, there is a Canada connection in this also. So I just had to say, they were raising slogans in favor of Jathedar Justin Trudeau. So this is how things are. And point number 3, I think it's time to make that bathroom outside the British consulate, which they were objecting to. I think Sushant will give me 100% backing in this. वो जो bathroom हम लोग ने Sushant decide किया था नहीं बनाने का, उसको बना दो अभी इन लोगों को. Yeah, I don't know how many of you remember in 2023 when that flag incident had happened outside. So see, this is the classic Indian response. We decided to make a bathroom outside the British High Commission, and the British was like, "यार ये मत करो, तुम लोग cheating करते हो, ऐसे मत किया करो." But the point is, on a very serious note, how many times am I gonna say this too, Barkha? We just don't. There is no response from the Indian side. I mean, we are the quintessential Kadi Ninda turtle who keeps doing Kadi Ninda on a daily basis. I mean, who cares about Kadi Ninda? You know what we should do? We should tell the British people that bhai, and India, see, who cares? मैं तो openly बोल रहा हूँ, 10,000 लोगों को 1,000 रुपया दो, ब्रिटिश हाई कमीशन के बाहर जाके उनकी बैंड बजा दो, ऐसे धरने लगाओ, इन लोगों का जीना हराम कर दो, बाहर नहीं निकले, अंदर नहीं निकले, बैठे रहे अंदर, बैठे रहो अंदर. See,
but what would you have the government do? What would you have the government do beyond Kadi Ninda? I mean, what would you have them do? Be specific. What would you have them do?
First of all, any person who has Khalistani affiliation, just like in the Canadian case where we have made some progress, I don't know if Sushant would agree with me, but on the Canadian case, I believe there is actual tangible progress being done by the government of India in terms of specifically finding out who are the pro-Khalistani elements, and they are not allowed to enter India. I think we've been lax as far as the British case is concerned. We should be very... See, I have always maintained Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, America. These 5 countries, they use the Khalistani issue like a negotiating tool as far as their foreign policy thing. Now with Trump, things have changed in America. But before Trump, I'm talking about the American foreign policy was very consistent. All these nations use Khalistan as a bargaining chip. It's more like an annoyance. India should draw the line. Okay, आपको करना है आप करने दो, आपको जो करना है करने दो. You create a ruckus outside our minister's convoy, we will create a ruckus outside yours. Principle of reciprocity. You create problems in our consulates in your countries, we will create problems in your consulates in our country. Point number 3, anybody who is a British passport holder who's living in England and is Khalistani adjacent or Khalistani supporter, best of luck, you will never come to India. And your relatives in India, उनकी सारी प्रॉपर्टी के ऊपर गवर्नमेंट का पूरा अधिकार है. ना जो करना है कर लो.
So, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, I mean, I don't know if creating counter tit for tat problems outside British consulates and commissions in India is the MEA's domain. But I think what both Sushant and Kushal are saying is that this condemnation isn't getting us anywhere. Now, obviously, I understand that not everything is said on camera, unless you're Donald Trump. There are things that are said behind camera. But Sushant says, look, UK and India are in the middle of negotiating a trade agreement, right? This is the moment to walk away from that. India's foreign minister has been heckled, encircled, almost attacked by Khalistanis who have not even the British police. I mean, either we believe they're incompetent or we believe that this was deliberate. It depends on your point of view. Sushant says it's deliberate. The British police are not even able to stop them at a safe distance from the car. This is a basic fundamental security breach. Should we be continuing as normal with the UK in this context is the question being raised by Sushant and Kushal. What would you say, Ambassador?
Well, I think that tough action are needed on our part. And I agree that we have not been tough enough in sending across the messages that we want to and that messages that we ought to. Now, Mr. Sareen was absolutely right. You know, the External Affairs Ministry, when I was part of it, I found that we were always approaching the different embassies and high commissions here to help with securing visas for the children or relatives of important people. And now if you're currying favor on these issues, it compromises your ability to act tough when the need arises. So as Mr. Sareen suggested, the External Affairs Ministry should adopt a policy that we will not seek to intervene in regard to visas of private individuals or even officials. Simply because it's up to the host government to give it or not, and we are not going to compromise our ability to be tough when required. Now, as regards this issue of carrying out demonstrations in front of the British High Commission, as Mr. Kushal suggested, you know, there are some limitations, unfortunately, because under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, we are required to provide adequate protection to the concerned diplomatic mission, and we might be.
But they aren't following. But they aren't. No. But so they aren't following that. They are not able to. Or
right now, we have to take tough action on our part also. Now, let me mention that it's not that in regard to the happenings in London we haven't done anything. The NIA, the National Investigation Agency, has investigated a number of leads and in fact filed cases in some of these, and is being tough in regard to locating the mischievous elements operating from within India and carrying out these activities there. There is a clear Pakistani hand, of course. I was posted in Pakistan in the early 1980s, and I saw firsthand how the Pakistanis were directly abetting the Khalistan movement. There used to be the jathas of Sikh pilgrims who used to visit Nankana Sahib and Panja Sahib, and the Pakistanis had their groups of Canadian Sikhs, the so-called Khalistan supporters, housed in these gurudwaras, and they would attack the Indian High Commission or the Indian Embassy at that time. The liaison officers who were sent, they used to be brutally attacked by these so-called Khalistan supporters. So this has been happening right under the nose of the Pakistan government with their full abetment, because frankly, they always wanted to try and break up India as an act of revenge for what they saw happened in Bangladesh. I was told during my posting in Pakistan, Mr. Dayal, after 10 years, you will not recognize the map of India. And I replied back that if I don't recognize the map of India, it will be because Pakistan will become a part of our country. So then they would shut up. But the fact is, it wouldn't stop their mischief mongering. They were abetting the Khalistan movement, and they continue to do it today. All these things which are happening in Canada and the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Australia and elsewhere, clearly have a Pakistani hand. It is the ISI which is behind all these activities. The ISI funds the so-called Khalistan supporters and their activities. So I'm afraid that
And therefore, what is the
because
menu of
of
options?
next door, we
Yeah,
will
I
have
got.
to, we have to act tough. Yes.
Okay, so what does the acting tough look like, Sushant? What does acting tough look like?
Look, Barkha, before I come to that, one of the reasons why Ambassador Dayal, what he's saying, and I think Kushal also agrees with us, that this is basically a joint venture between the Pakistanis and the Brits. And I have no illusions in my mind that the Brits have always hated Indians, Hindus in particular. Forget some of these, William Dalrymple type who come out here and try and lord over us like the new white Mughals. Forget about them. But the rest of them, they, at least as far as the British state is concerned, they have utter contempt for us. And I think for right reasons, because of the way we kind of continue to behave with these characters and we don't push back enough.
Why do you feel that this is a JV between the Brits and the Pakistanis and the British
No, I'll
hate
tell you.
Indians?
Yeah. So, Barkha, just a couple of weeks back, the Pakistani army chief had gone to the UK, where he was fated like he is the army chief of the British Army. He might well be in the future. But the point is that when he has his interactions, whether it's in Rusi or Chatham House or some of the other Pakistani generals go, how many questions are, and the questions which you've shown, which are put to Dr. Jaishankar, was only a very small snippet. There are a whole lot of other very, very unparliamentary kind of questions which are asked, including by the person who's the anchor, who thinks that it's her responsibility as a white Brit to ask this, from a former colony, this foreign minister, questions about human rights in India. Let's talk about human rights in the UK. Let's talk about the freedom of speech in UK. And I don't see why we need to be mealy-mouthed about what the hell's happening under not only the Labour government, even the earlier government, and the kind of license and two-tier policing which has been underway in most of these countries. But the point is that when the Pakistani army chief goes, is he questioned on human rights? Is he questioned on stolen elections? Is he questioned on how the Baloch are being butchered? Is he questioned on any of those? Not a chance, right? So very clearly, the Pakistanis and the Brits work together. The Brits partly because they are afraid that the Pakistani ISI will also give them leads on terrorists inside Britain who could harm Britain. If those terrorists go outside Britain, then it's fine. So one is that reason why I say, on what are the actions which we should be taking? I would have imagined that the first action we should have taken is we should have simply, Dr. Jaishankar, under whatever pretext he wants to, he should have simply cut short his tour and said that I don't think it's, I can continue with this thing anymore. I'm going back home. Or he could have preponed I believe he has to go to Ireland as well. He could have tried and taken 2 days off and stayed in Ireland or some other place and break off this. Secondly, I think we should put this whole free trade agreement with the Brits in suspension. Frankly, what do the Brits bring to the table anyways, right? The trade which is happening with them under the WTO rules will continue. Even if that stops, doesn't matter. How are the Brits going to survive? Number 3, I think we really need to be very, very strict on this whole visa business, especially for people with even the remotest connection with a Khalistani gurudwara or any Khalistani activity, and not just individuals. I think entire families need to be prescribed from visiting India. Number 4, what Kushal said, not just about their relatives out here, but many of these characters seem to have some properties in India. I think those properties should be forfeited and they should be taken over by the state, because individuals will be scared to take over those properties. You can build a government school on them. You can build a police station out there. You can build an army camp out there. I don't care what the hell. You build a public toilet out there for all I care. And finally, we can also indulge in these sneaky things like building not just a toilet, but a big public toilet outside the British High Commission. And if need be, outside the house of the British High Commissioner. Why not? So look, the point is I am going to dish it out to them just as what they are dishing out to me. Look, this worked with the Pakistanis, right? Do you remember how many times the Pakistanis would assault Indian diplomats? Ambassador Dayal would know it. It would have happened during his time as well. Uh, and then you start meting out the same treatment to them, and the penny drops. So unless you are not going to do something like this, it the other side simply does not listen, because after all, this Kadi Ninda works only up to this much, so much. No, it doesn't really matter. They
So
will
I have a
also.
question. I have a question. I have a question before I go to Kushal. You said that this is a JV between the Brits and the Pakistanis. Pakistanis' motivation, we understand. What is the motivation of the Brits in doing this? I mean, Kushal made the point it's a negotiating chip. Is that how you see it? You seem to be locating it within deep kind of racism, imperialism, the history of colonialism. What is it? Can we unmute Sushant? Give me a second, Sushant. I can't hear you. Yeah, Sushant.
Barkha, it's all of that, plus it's leverage which they think they have, that they see the Brits in their own country. If there is a Tommy Robinson who talks about grooming gangs, they arrest him and put him in jail, right? If there is a riot which breaks out in Britain, they hold summary trials, even of the kind, even Pakistan, summary trials, and they put people in jail for 2 years, 3 years, God knows what all. Again, we've seen the new Apple controversy. Now, this is what they do in their own country, and yet they give sanctuary and give complete license and permit these groups to indulge in all kinds of poisonous, hateful propaganda inside their own country, including, for example, I don't know if you know of this guy. There is this gentleman, Harnam Singh Kapoor. I hope I've got his name correct, right? Sixth gentleman, nationalist of the highest order. The Khalistanis have been targeting him. Have you ever seen the cops stop anybody from targeting this guy? Ever seen any cop arresting anybody who has been targeting this guy? It's like, it's fine. You can go ahead and do this because it's the done thing, right? He's speaking up for India. The Brits have also had this attitude that, look, we need to keep this thing going with the Indians. We will insult them. We will these very slimy, typical British slights we will do to the Indians. And yet, yeah, of course, we also need their business, so we'll also do business with them. And look at us. What are we saying? That now we will think of buying military equipment from the Brits. But I don't know how people in the government of India think, but going to the Brits to buy military equipment, we got to be out of our mind, or any of these characters. Because it really means that we are basically mortgaging our security to these guys. At least I wouldn't trust the Brits. I would trust the French. I would certainly not trust the Brits, right? With anything.
Okay, let me bring in Kushal here and then we'll take last comments. I think Sushant is making the point that there is something much more deliberate here, right? This is not simply about ignorance of not understanding the linkages, that the British are actually in collusion with the Pakistanis. Is that how you see it?
I don't know if they are in collusion with the Pakistanis, but they clearly use this as a wedge to negotiate with India. I think the problem with India's foreign policy forever, and this is not about one political party or the other. It's actually, I just think that's India. That's just the nature of Indian foreign policy. And Indian foreign policy is one of the things that has been very consistent, irrespective of the political party that stays in power. Let's use this as an example because, hard power is very important. And through hard power comes soft power. See, people are often confused soft power as this almighty thing. There is no such thing as soft power. There is only hard power, and everything is downstream from that. Now, just recently, all right, in February, IPL teams pumped 3,257 crores approximately in a British cricket tournament. You know what India should do? India should tell these corporates, cancel karo. Next time agar aisa kuch kiya na, cancel karo. निकालो पैसा इन लोगों में से. और ज्यादा किया ना, 4 इंग्लिश प्लेयर्स को आईपीएल नहीं खेलने दो. ये सब करना पड़ेगा बरखा. And these are ways of arm twisting. You think the Americans don't do that? The Americans are past masters at that. कुछ नहीं, 4 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इसके यहां बंद कर दो, 5 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट उसके वहां बंद कर दो. I mean, the CIA has been on record to make serious investments in cinema. And are we that naive that we are not going to do that? Listen, I'm not saying we don't aspire to do that. My problem is we only keep aspirations. We don't do it. मेरे जैसा आदमी तो ओपनली बोल देता है, नहीं डालो 3,000 करोड़, भेज दो इंग्लैंड. अभी बांग्लादेश के साथ किया ना बरखा. We have a case in point. Bangladesh acts smart with us. Do you know no Bangladesh player is playing IPL for since then? Are people aware of that? Do you know how much of a problem that is for the Bangladeshis? Are we that naive that the Indian state did not tell the BCCI कि ए बांग्लादेश वालों को खेलने नहीं दे? We can do that with the English too. Who cares? Like, just no. नहीं खेलना. जा बैठ जा उधर तू.
Ambassador Dayal, lots of very non-diplomatic options from both Sushant and Kushal, and let me list some of them. Jaishankar should have cut his tour short. There should have been a much more visible statement of protest than an MEA readout or an MEA statement. Walk away from the FTA negotiations. And Kushal takes it, several steps further and says, look, you can use cricket, sports. Just tell the Brits, no more UK players in IPL. We've done that with the Pakistanis. He's now mentioned Bangladesh. There could be two views on that. You punish people who are not involved in decision making of their governments. But I think what he's saying is, tough luck. That's realpolitik. And if nothing is changing, then you've got to look at some of those options. Do you believe FM Jaishankar should have cut short his tour?
Well, frankly, I don't know whether Mr. Jaishankar could have cut short his tour. But we can certainly put a freeze on high-level interaction going forward. We should not have any high-level meetings at the level of ministers. We should just put a freeze on the relationship and make it clear that we are doing so because we are extremely unhappy about how pro-Khalistan supporters, abetted by the Pakistani establishment, have been carrying out anti-India activities with such freedom in the United Kingdom. And we should make it clear that unless we see visible action being taken by the British authorities against these so-called Khalistan supporters, against people who have been creating mischief against us, we will not do anything which would appear to indicate that we have a strong interest in the relationship. We should put a freeze going forward. As far as the free trade agreement, let it lie in limbo. We are not interested in having a free trade agreement, as some other panelists have said, with a country which openly encourages anti-India activities. So looking ahead, we should be tough. Forget about whatever happened if Jaishankar didn't cancel his visit or didn't holiday in Ireland. I mean, he would know what is best. I'm no one to prejudge. But looking forward, my advice would be freeze the relationship, nothing high level to go on with the United Kingdom unless we see visible action taken against anti-India mischievous elements.
Right. Let me get quick comments from Kushal and Sushant on that. Sort of Vishisht in our audience says, the empire and the jewel in the crown hangover has never ended for Britain when it comes to India. Global Britain is an oxymoron to wield influence in the former colonies. Freezing high-level engagement is the path ahead. Sushant, what do you say?
Look, some of the stuff which we have said, I'm sure the government has plenty of other options if it wants to exercise all of them, right? And there are multiple layers at which it can do it. But Barkha, I think it's important to flag out one thing. This particular incident which happened, now you can make light of it. It was just somebody who just ran across the road and he was immediately apprehended and taken aside, and all that he was doing was tearing an Indian flag. Big deal, right? But look, please keep in mind that these Khalistani scumbags have been involved in suicide attacks. They have been involved in bombings. How do you know that one of these characters, in collaboration with the Pakistanis, who seem to be hobnobbing with them all the time, is not a suicide bomber? Okay, maybe I'm saying something which is very extreme, but I won't put it past them. After all, wasn't Bian Singh, the former Chief Minister of Punjab, or the then Chief Minister of Punjab, assassinated like this? What if this guy was carrying a pistol and he decided that he's going to fire a couple of shots at Dr. Jaishankar's car? But there are multiple possibilities, right? What is the guarantee that next time an Indian leader goes to the UK or an Indian politician goes to the UK, something like this will not happen? And look, we all know how lawless London has become under the Pakistani mayor, right? Everybody knows it. I remember till about 10 years back, 15 years back.
But are you linking the lawlessness to Sadiq Khan's origins? I mean, is that fair? Is that logical?
Yeah, it's absolutely fair. It tells you where he's coming from, because it's the same kind of lawlessness in Lahore and Karachi, for all you know. Even in Islamabad, you have that kind of lawlessness. So I wouldn't put it past them. But it's a complete act of lawlessness which is out there. Your phones get snatched, your bags get snatched, the cops don't bother. The cops are so politically correct now, partly because that's what must have been the orders that have come from the top. There is a very clear, in fact, now they're passing a law legalizing two-tier policing in the UK. And these are the guys who are going to tell us on how to run our country. I don't think we need any advice from the Brits on how to run our country and how to manage the law and order in our country, or how to ensure that people's civil rights and human rights are protected in India. I think the Brits are the last people who need to pontificate to the rest of the world, given their very sordid history of mass murder and colonization.
I totally agree with that essential argument of the Brits having no moral authority or sort of any sort of values that should be offered up for emulation. But Kushal, I do think we should spend 2 minutes talking about Sushant's point about what if the guy had been carrying a pistol. Now, imagine for a moment that this was happening in the United States of America. The Secret Service, like I'm just thinking of this. Imagine that a protester comes and takes his position in front of the car, right in front of the car that is ferrying the American, let's say a top level American politician. I don't think the Secret Service would hesitate to pull out their gun, because they wouldn't know whether the guy in front of the car has a pistol or not. That's the point Sushant is making. And I think it's a serious point.
Pull out their gun. That person, if he or she tries the stunt in America, that is a dead man walking. Okay, let's get real. And full disclosure, I support the American stand. You do this in front of listen, Barkha, how many times have I said this online and offline? The image of that reenactment of the assassination of Indira Gandhi that happens every year in multiple cities in Canada is the most repulsive sight that I came across in my life. Do I have my political disagreements with the Congress party? I do. But Indira Gandhi was my prime minister. To hell with these people. To hell with them. And if they try any stunt, I know the level of violence these people are capable of. Yeah. I know very well. You just have to live in those areas where these people are to know the kind of violence these people are capable of. And we should not take this lightly. My biggest problem in this entire episode is every single time India can see, I understand that we have less bargaining checks with America. Okay, let's get real. Every relationship has a balance of power kind of a thing where somebody has the upper hand, somebody has the lower hand. यार हम कनाडा और यूके के साथ ये करेंगे? तो यार बस कर दो यार, मतलब यार क्या है ये? क्या देश है ये? क्या देश है? मतलब सीरियसली आई एम सॉरी, कनाडा और यूके के साथ भी हम ऐसी बातें कर रहे हैं। मेरे को तो कुछ, मैं कोई पॉलिटिशियन तो नहीं, मुझे तो कोई शर्म नहीं आती है बोलने में। वो जो लोग होंगे उनको शर्म आती होगी। यार सीधी सी बात है यार, दे आर लाइक, अभी क्या बैठो साइड में जाके यार तुम। दिस इज अ बिग बॉयज टेबल, तुम्हारे सी दे डिजर्व टू बी ट्रीटेड हाउ लाइक ट्रम्प ट्रीट्स देम। वो बोलता है बैठो तो बैठ जाते हैं, खड़े हो तो खड़े हो। ट्रम्प नचा रहा है ना उनको, क्या कर रहा है ट्रम्प? उनको नचा ही रहा है। Yeah, Trump calls Trudeau Governor Trudeau. I had a call with Governor Trudeau.
Yeah. Good point there about, in America, this guy would have been a dead man walking. Ambassador Dayal, closing word to you. They deserve to be treated the way Trump treats them, right? That's not in India's, I would say, diplomatic DNA. It's just not how diplomats like you are trained. Kushal and Sushant are saying that's not yielding results. Even if you don't have to do it in full public display, do something sharp and tough. Do something that cuts them where it hurts, because this is just going to carry on. Effigies of Prime Minister Modi and Indira Gandhi have been burnt. And now the foreign minister, the guy is just standing in front of his car. He could have thrown a rock in. He could have taken a shot. We don't know. These are men who have blown up Air India, Kanishka. These are men who have killed the Chief Minister of Punjab. These are not free speeches. Let's make no mistake.
Well, I agree. Only words will not do. We have to take up the matter with the United Kingdom authorities in a very forceful manner and ensure that they take the action which we want them to. And certainly arresting this character who had tried to protest in front of the car of the External Affairs Minister and tore up the Indian flag and could have posed a bigger danger, he should be put behind bars. And others like him also, who the United Kingdom authorities can easily identify for their earlier, participation in civil acts. Now, let me mention that India wants good relations with the United Kingdom. We have a large Indian origin community there. Many of them are still Indian nationals. A good relationship is also very much in our interest. But, and this is a fundamental but, this good relationship can only happen when the right atmosphere is created. And certainly, anti-India protests by Khalistani extremists, the so-called people who want to break up India and form a separate state here, these activities will not be tolerated. What we need to do is to send a tough message to the British authorities and ensure that they take action and clear the pitch, because otherwise the right sort of relationship will not be taking place.
Absolutely, and I think the bottom line is it will be important to show some visible action, because if this is going to pass with just a cursory, formal NEA statement, even if the action is taken behind the scenes at some point, that communication should, in my opinion, be made to the Indian people, to the citizens of India, who are all aghast. And I take Kushal's point, it doesn't matter which party you vote for, BJP, Congress, somebody else. This is the Indian foreign minister in a country that I think Sushant is correct to remind us of the historical context that has colonized India, that history cannot be divorced. Pakistan's hand in it cannot be separated from this. But we've got to move beyond the sort of seasonal condemnation. We've got to do more than just protest. Thank you so much, Kushal, Sushant, Ambassador Dayal, and to our audience. Thank you, see you soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.